Hello, this is Dominic from the Jack and Dom Radio Show, a weekly sports radio program, and although we broadcast on professional hardware, we do record our show mostly on my laptop, and sometimes I don't press record right when we start. Some shows will start right in the middle of a topic. Regardless, this show is a work of love and passion for sports with raw and transparent opinions between the two of us. So I hope you all enjoy. Jack and Dom Radio Show. Dominic, Jack, how are you doing today?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Well,
I'm doing better than our football team's record this season, that's for sure.
Oh, then that's definitely a low bar to cross. But obviously, it's that time of year, the weather's changing, and just school seems to be getting longer and longer and longer now. So
and tougher and tougher.
Oh, of course, yeah. Well, as we always say, the opinions said in the show do not represent the opinions of this radio station or the university. That being said, good evening, everyone. Talk about football, hockey, as well as some Big Ten stuff, NFL. We'll have our first NFL power rankings for this year. So definitely stay tuned for that. Long overdue, but yeah, that's a later part of the show. Once again, our football team loses again to Michigan Tech 39-9 just a few days ago. 14th loss in a row against Tech in the rivalry, but 19th time in a row for overall losing record, another school record broken. And considering that Ferris or the team we're going to be facing, number 3 team in the country, Ferris State, we're facing next week. Good luck with that. That's going to be some trouble for us for next week. So, any comments, Jack, on that game? Did you watch that game at all?
I didn't need to because it's just so disappointing.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't even know what to say anymore, guys.
I saw some of the highlights. There was a pretty nice interception in the end zone by the Wildcats, but other than that, it was mainly the Huskies all the way through.
I saw
most of that game.
Some of the highlights on the Giliac channel. They were more like lowlights because it was quite bad.
Yeah,
I watched a quarterback that was under duress run for 40 yards and not be touched on a touchdown.
What?
Yeah, I saw running backs and wide receivers with an extremely large amount of room running faster than kids on Christmas Day trying to go get their presents. You had literally no pressure on their quarterback. The coverages were consistently blown. Just typical NMU activity. We ran the ball poorly. We couldn't throw the ball.
I got people on social media arguing with me, saying that even though we're still losing games this year, that the team is better than last year.
Okay.
I don't think so, but it's kind of like hard to. It's like one of those things where it's like hard to pinpoint. Like why? I mean, it just feels worse. Although if we probably go into the numbers, the point differential, I think, is better than last year. But considering that how the offense is playing the game, it doesn't look better. What do you think about that?
Does it really matter if they look better if they're not winning?
I that would be my rebuttal, is that if you think they look better, it still has resulted in 0 wins.
Right. Does it matter? Does it matter if you lose by 1 point or by 100? Not really. It's still a loss.
Well, considering that there's 19 in a row. That being said, hockey is starting pretty slow this year. We're 1-5 overall. Shutout losses against Arizona State. Shutout series, excuse me. And play Tech on the 1st. Heard you're not going to go. There's still tickets available.
Not many.
I was able to sneak one in literally 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, I'm just not interested in going. The vibes in the student section are just not the same as last year.
Yeah.
and the team is obviously not the same as it is last year. It's a rebuilding year, and I respect that. Like, that's what we've come to, we knew that was going to happen this year. So I'm glad, the freshmen and sophomores are getting some experience, but at the same time, it makes it really uninteresting to go to the games when the student section is more than half empty most weeks.
Yeah.
And the team is losing by 3 or 4. I expect it to be tough in CCHA play.
Yeah.
It's going to be a rough season, and it's a rebuilding year, so I'm okay with that. But given that the product on the ice is not super attractive, it just doesn't really incentivize me to go.
That being said, if I mentioned this before the show, if the hockey program continues to play at this rate where they get 1 win out of every 6 games, I might place them F tier.
See,
or at least F plus or D minus.
I'd put them in E tier. There's
no E.
Well, there is now.
No, not in the grading system.
Fine, put them in B tier.
D, yeah, like D minus or D tier.
Fine. That's where you want to put them. Point being, they're not as bad as the football team. Not even close. But it's just not been a good start to the season. So, a little unfortunate.
Our volleyball loses to Grand Valley and Wayne State 3-0 in both games, but we'll play Tech on the first. If I remember correctly, the volleyball game, if you do want to go to the volleyball game and the hockey game, you can do that. They don't happen simultaneously, fortunately. The volleyball game is first, probably like in the afternoon, and then by 7 o'clock, the volleyball game should end by then, and then at 7 o'clock, the hockey game at 7, both on November 1st. I have to go to the volleyball game for work-related reasons, but the hockey game I am going willingly because I have a ticket. Our volleyball team will play here in the Venom against Tech on the 1st. The thing that's notable for our enemy team, although our soccer team's women's soccer is doing pretty well. 10 wins so far.
Yeah, they're the best sports team on this campus, hands down.
Yeah, 3-0 win against Roosevelt and a 5-0 win against Purdue Northwest.
Yeah, they've been impressive
for senior day.
They've been very impressive.
Yep.
I haven't been to any other game. Well, I went to one game with us at FP, but it got delayed.
Well, there is one more home game.
Right, I think I'm going to
go at 3 p.m.
They should host a playoff game, I think, based on their playoff seeding. And so if that's the case, I think I will try to go to that and support the team.
Yeah.
I haven't been great at going to sporting events this year, just because...
Especially outdoor sporting events.
That's tough, especially this time of year. But it's like most of our teams haven't been very good. So maybe I go to women's soccer, though. I know they're doing pretty well.
Well, there's one more home game. Unless you're willing to travel to Grand Valley or Saginaw.
No, but I'll probably go to the tournament game if it's hosted.
If we're hosting it.
But
that could be Grand Valley, though, because Grand Valley is also really good.
Well, no, I think a couple top teams host. So.
Okay.
Is it the whole tournament is hosted by a team? Oh, you might be right, actually.
It says here hosted by the highest
Let's hope it's us, then.
And I think that will require a win against Grand Valley, which I think that will be a challenge for our women's soccer team. Men's soccer team doing pretty mid.
They're okay.
I'd say 5-7-2. Still some.
What's the women's team's conference record?
I gotta go back here. Conference win: 8 wins, 2 losses, and a tie.
So 8-2-1.
Yes.
So if Grand Valley loses any one game, NMU would be currently at this point in time ahead of them.
Okay.
So it is possible.
It's possible, and the NMU Wildcats do control their destiny in the sense that if they beat Grand Valley, then they get toast, pretty much.
Correct. So we'll see what happens. Assuming they win all their other games, then they control their own destiny. Well, I should say they control their own destiny, but they have to win all their other games and then win that game as well.
I know that on October 20th, there was senior day for the men's team, did win 2-0. However, yesterday, our men's team went to Roosevelt University and lost 1-3. which, I mean, I guess that was supposed to be close. I think their men's team was like one of their top programs coming into the GILIAC. So it's not a surprise at all.
Right.
Another really, really big game that apparently Jack and I have a disagreement on regarding what happened. Michigan.
Don't we always, though, when it comes to these two teams?
I don't know. It's Michigan. Okay, we're talking about the Michigan State game. Michigan beat Michigan State in a close 24-17, literally coming down to the final minutes. Jack didn't know, but so the line was 4.5 for Michigan. But you wanted Michigan to lose, or not wanted, but you thought that Michigan was going to lose that game. And somehow Michigan State played themselves to lose that game. I don't know.
Well, I thought Michigan State was running the ball primarily at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
I thought Michigan State was going to run away with it. And then Michigan State started going primarily the passing game.
Well, because defense started to lock down a little bit. That's what I saw.
Well, yeah, that was part of it. Michigan's defense stepped up to the plate. Mm-hmm. But Michigan State's play calling, in my opinion, adjusted in a way that put them in a position to lose the game.
Okay.
And obviously Michigan pulled out a lot of trick plays, but it's funny to me.
Childs is still a young player.
That's not even what it was. They didn't put him in a position to succeed. They didn't call plays, I think, that put him in a position to succeed. They didn't really let him run the ball. And when he did, obviously he fumbled, right?
Yeah, there was a few instances.
So that was an issue. And ultimately, Michigan just trusted Davis Warren's arm, which I don't know how, but somehow the Michigan State secondary must be made of paper mache because somehow we actually were able to throw the football.
Yeah.
Not sure how. Obviously, the trick plays were nice, but then the frustrating part as a Michigan fan is we go from 2 drives, trick plays, touchdowns, to our next 2 drives, run up the middle on first down, run up the middle on second down.
I saw that.
Throw incomplete on third down, rinse and repeat for 2 straight drives. It's like, guys, why? We've been doing this all year. It's why we're in this position. We gotta, I really hope we get rid of our offensive coordinator and fire some of our staff. Wide receivers coach needs to go for sure. Our quarterbacks coach is our offensive coordinator, so he most certainly needs to go.
You don't have J.J. McCarthy anymore.
Well, it's not even that. It's just I feel like you can call bad plays and get bailed out when you have one of the top offenses in college football.
Yeah.
Not always. We'll talk later about how Chip Kelly's inability to call plays for Ohio State does not get bailed out by superior talent.
Yeah.
But on a team like Michigan last year, I was also frustrated with their play calling for the first half of the season especially, and then we kind of locked in the second half, which is why we won a national championship. Don't give me it was because of sign stealing. No, we had it was if you count this draft though, and you count starters, probably that entire team, minus maybe the fullback, who I would argue even the fullback is NFL caliber, went to the NFL. Okay. I'm going to try and go. I don't know if I remember every single player on that Michigan team, but I'm going to try to remember at least if they're going.
We have plenty of time.
So McCarthy, first round pick.
Yep.
Right? And I think would be in the same position Sam Darnold is in right now if he was healthy, right? Blake Corum, want to say, I don't remember what round, I think the 3rd to the Rams. He may never be a starter, but at the very least, he is a capable running back, right? Donovan Edwards might be the sole exception, but Donovan Edwards was a 3rd down back, and so I don't count him as a starter. Same with Khalil Mullings. I don't count him as a starter. Wide receiver, I think, is the only position where there wasn't NFL talent. And even there, you had Cornelius Johnson, who I think went undrafted. You had wide receivers are hard because ours were not good. Samaj Morgan. Roman Wilson, yeah. I think he did.
A.J. Barner, but he's a tight end.
Barner was a tight end. Colston Loveland will be a first-round pick.
Cornelius Johnson.
Let me keep going. Let me try and remember him before you say him. Yeah, I said Cornelius Johnson. You had Samaj Morgan, who's still on the team, but I think will eventually, if we get an offensive coordinator with a brain, be an NFL talent. Okay, I think that's most of the skill position players on the offense. I know there were a lot of receivers that rotated in and out because it was one of Michigan's specialties. But you also had the offensive line, which you had Zach Sinter, who was drafted, Trevor Keegan, who I believe went undrafted. Ladarius Henderson is still on the team at left tackle. Blanking on the center, I think it was Drake Nugent from Stanford, who I think also got drafted. And the right tackle, I can't remember off the top of my head. If you have it pulled up, you can jog my memory. But I think the entire offensive line was, at the very least, invited to training camp. Does it tell you who their right tackle was?
Well, it just says DT and S and LB and RB and.
Well, if I look, I'll remember. Okay. Oh, you're looking at that. I wanted to see. I want to look at their. Quickly, I want to look at their. If it'll let me see it, their roster from last year from the national championship game.
I see. You might have to go to the Michigan.
Here we go. Okay, Michigan starters. So yeah, Roman Wilson went to the NFL. Colson Loveland will be a first-round pick. Corum in the NFL. Barnhart went to a training camp. Trente Jones went to a training camp. Ladarius Henderson is still on the team and will get drafted. Drake Nugent got drafted. Trevor Keegan got drafted.
Yeah.
Cornelius Johnson went to a training camp. Tyler Morris might be the only one that didn't.
So there's a bunch of good guys that are gone.
So basically, and JJ was a first-round pick. So that's 11 out of 12 guys on that roster that got invited to an NFL training camp, and I think 1, 2, 3, 4. I think Trente Jones is like a 7th-round pick. 5, like 6 of them. Ladarius is still on the team, so soon to be 7 of them on the offense got drafted, drafted. Sanders still was a 2nd-round pick. Josh Wallace was an undrafted free agent. McGregor was like a 7th-round pick, undrafted free agent. Will Johnson will easily be a 1st-round pick. I don't actually know what happened to Mike Barrett. I think he was drafted in the later rounds. Junior Colson was a 3rd-round pick. Keon Sabb went to a training camp. Jalen Harrell, I think, went to a training camp. Mason Graham's going to be a 1st-round pick. Rod Moore tore his ACL, but will be drafted probably this coming year. And Chris Jenkins, I believe, also went to a training camp. And that's not including other guys like Kenneth Grant, who was a backup that will be a 1st-round pick this year. Ernest Hausman, who will probably be a top 3-round pick. So point being, pretty much every single starter on that team, minus maybe 2 guys, is currently in the NFL, or at the very least, went to training camp.
Wasn't Donovan Edwards a starter last year?
No, Donovan Edwards was the 2nd back behind Corum, and so thus I don't count him as a starter because he was a 3rd-down back.
But he probably had some.
Sure, he had some good stats and he had some big plays, but he's not.
Got himself in the cover of NCAA 25.
Right, he wasn't a starter, at least in my opinion. But anyway, point being, and our kicker also, I believe, got picked up as a free agent.
Oh, cool.
But anyway, point is, almost every single player on that team. So, you, even as a bad coordinator, which I would argue ours is,
okay.
You get bailed out when on your offense, 7 of your guys get drafted or whatever it was, 6 or 7, and like 6 or 7 others go to an NFL training camp or will be drafted this year. Right? That is by non-Georgia, non-Alabama, non-Ohio State, non-Clemson, and maybe non-Texas. Now, they're actually back, although I would argue they're not. Generational talent, right? So even if you cheat, which, again, not much proof of that, even if you have a bad coaching staff, which their offensive coordinator was most definitely poor. Actually, Sharon Moore was technically the offensive coordinator last year, but him and Kirk Campbell were kind of the co-OCs, so we don't really know kind of who had the keys. But now that he's taken over fully, we can kind of tell that Sharon Moore was the one that clearly called a lot of those more clutch plays, right? Because we're not seeing them this year. I think what's going to happen is they're going to make a lot of coaching changes over the offseason, and I think Michigan State will too. I think they'll bring in some new assistants, even though a lot of them were here for their first year. I think Jonathan Smith's going to want to bring in some more successful guys. I think especially at a position like quarterback coach for MSU, you got to get somebody in there that can mentor Childs. And I don't know who your current QB coach is because I don't know much about the Michigan State coaching staff. But I think one of the big reasons you lost that game is Aiden Childs is not progressing at the level I thought as a Michigan fan. So I'm guessing as a Michigan State fan, you're equally disappointed by
it seems like Like he transferred from Oregon State, which is what we know with his coach. And so I thought, well, maybe, there'd be a little bit more chemistry with the team, but it's you're going to a whole new team with a first year coach, with it, considering that last year we went 3-9, like with a huge scandal that still to this day, like there's still like lawsuits and court battles going on today with a lot of people questioning whether or not Mel Tucker should have been fired.
Well, it's not even that. It's questionable of from a university perspective. If the university knew about anything Mel Tucker did after the Larry Nassar stuff, if you did it again, that's an extremely poor look for the university.
Oh, of course.
And I don't know if that information will ever come out, but it makes the university look really bad because it starts to create a pattern. And when there's a pattern, it's either you're hiring people that are doing these things and you're not vetting them properly, or you know about these things and you don't care. Both of which are a problem. So,
or a combination of both.
Right, or both. So, like...
Is it possible, I'm just saying like this in general, that a group of people knowingly doing bad things in an organization can properly, compartmentalize?
Oh, yes.
And so that people higher up won't know what's going on until something like really leaks.
Well, that's what happened with, I want to say with Joe Paterno, but
oh yeah, that's right.
I know James Franklin also just got accused of stuff. The point being, I don't want to harp on these kind of allegations because they're really serious and mostly unrelated to sports. That is true, yeah. But point being, if you're Michigan State and Michigan, you've got to make some changes at the assistant coaching positions. Not that Michigan State was expected to do this good. I mean, I had them at like 5 or 6 wins, so I guess I'm probably going to hit that by the end of the year. Obviously, Michigan had higher expectations, but I think we all, even Michigan State and Ohio State fans, underestimated the departure of the majority of your coaching staff, specifically the ones that were instrumental to your success, being your head coach and your D coordinator, and several others, our strength and conditioning coach. Those 3 guys, in my opinion, were the core of this program. You obviously lost pretty much every starter on both sides of the ball, right? So I think it's going to be interesting, though, to see 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, even next year, who's going to figure it out? And if they both do, who's going to figure it out first?
Yeah.
Now, I think what's going to happen is this is a kind of out-of-the-box long-term projection. But I think in 2026, Michigan's going to get a new athletic director. I don't think they're going to renew their current athletic director because their current athletic director successfully allowed Jim Harbaugh to leave, our baseball coach to leave that recently made a national championship.
Oh, wow.
He kept Juwan Howard for much longer than he should have. I would argue Juwan Howard should have been fired when he punched, I want to say it was a Wisconsin player.
I remember that.
That should have been a terminable offense. Basically, he's lost a majority of the fan base, and now with the Sharon Moore hire, a lot of people are questioning, which, like, I think after that Michigan State game, you can give him a couple years to get his program into place, but we got to hit the transfer portal hard. Point being, 2026, I think we're going to get a new athletic director, and I think by 2026, we will know if Sharon Moore is going to be good enough to be our coach or not. I'm saying end of 2026 season, because I don't think a new AD is going to make a move mid-season. So end of 2026, it gives them 3 years to kind of get the program together, which I think is reasonable at a big program like Michigan. So we'll get to that 2026 and we'll know. I genuinely don't know if we're going to rebound or not. I think my answer is going to be yes, but I think it's going to be completely unrelated to coaching, and here's why. And then I'll harch on Michigan State. You can try and say some nice things about Michigan. I think Michigan will rebound because I think alumni and boosters are going to start putting up big NIL money.
Okay.
They want to put up NIL money when we're winning, but you don't have to put up NIL money when we are winning a national championship and 3 straight Big Ten titles. Because whatever we're doing is working, so we don't really need to hit the transfer portal, go buy players, all that stuff, right?
Wasn't there like an NIL like acceptance lag You know what I mean by acceptance lag?
Kind of.
Like it took Michigan longer to
Michigan-
fully embrace it.
Michigan was like, let's be the big boys on the block and be the ones pushing back against this, which, like, for the record, I think NIL is out of control and should have been regulated.
Okay.
But at this point, the cat is out of the box, and the NCAA is a useless organization that can't do anything about it. So you kind of have to, whether or not you like the rules, you
Adapt.
play by those rules.
That too, yeah.
I think inevitably Michigan will lower its admission standards for athletes, as a lot of schools have. Michigan State is the culprit of this too. Most Big Ten schools are, excluding maybe Northwestern, but they don't really.
But
they've never had an athletics program really to speak of. So
I think their track and field's really good.
well, my point being, the major sports with the major NIL money, they've never really been contenders.
They have like a good run, not a great run, but a good run in football, like every once in a while.
Right, they are okay sometimes,
But-
like Indiana right now. But point being,
Yeah.
I think the reason Michigan will be good again, I don't know if we'll be good next year. I think we'll be better than this, but I think we'll probably be, I don't think we'll win the Big Ten. I think it'll be probably Oregon again.
Okay.
I think we'll be like in the 9-10 win range.
Did any of us ever see Oregon being as good as they are?
No.
Beginning of the
I
season?
thought Oregon-Ohio State would be the championship game, but I thought Ohio State would blow them out. At
But
this
now
point,
it
I
could
think
be
it's
the
either
other way
Oregon,
around.
Penn State, actually.
Oh.
Or, majorly hot take, I'd like to see how Indiana plays the next couple weeks.
Okay.
If Indiana goes out and beats Michigan, I don't remember the rest of their schedule, but if they beat us and they go, I think they've got a real shot of going into the Ohio State game undefeated. If they go into that game undefeated and they blow out Michigan, they blow out their other opponents, there's a good chance that they
Just
could be in
guess
the
who
conference championship.
Indiana plays next?
Who?
Michigan State.
Yeah, they're going to beat you.
yeah,
They're going to
they
beat
Michigan.
us.
Yeah, they go
The point being, okay,
to
let me go
Michigan.
back to my Michigan.
and are favored 81%.
As they should be. That's almost a guaranteed win. But
But it's Ohio
back
State
to, back to the future of Michigan State football, because I think it's depressing to talk about the current state of the Big Ten, because other than Indiana, it just makes me sad that all of our rivals are doing good. I know Ohio State and Penn State aren't your official rivals, but of all the teams to win the Big Ten, other than Michigan, they got to be near the bottom of the list for you.
Yes.
At least I would hope they are.
I mean, for Ohio State, we have a trophy.
Right.
The Land Grant
Right.
Trophy.
Exactly. And nobody likes Penn State because they're Penn State. So sorry for those of you from Pennsylvania, but like we don't like you. You're the laughingstock of the Big Ten because every year you're like, it's our year, and then it's not your year.
That was Michigan, but go right ahead.
Well, we actually made it our year
Yeah.
and won something. Okay, so Michigan, back to the Michigan plan.
Yes. Yes. I interrupted
2026,
you.
I think here's what's going to happen. One, you've got a true freshman QB. They got downgraded to 5 stars to 4 stars, but I still think it's 5-star caliber QB. You have a 4-star QB coming in 2026 that is arguably a 5-star QB. And we are currently actively trying to flip the number 1 QB in the 2025 class, who's a local kid from the state of Michigan from LSU. So, even without him, you've still got 2 upper 4-star, lower 5-star level QBs. JJ was about in that range. Some guys had him at 5, some guys had him at 4. He kind of fluctuated. I think he did end up at 5, but point being. So you've got quarterback prospects coming in. Our offensive line will always be at least solid. When you have a good offensive line, in theory, almost anybody can run through that offensive line. You see it all the time.
Yeah.
We are not Iowa tight end university level, but given that Iowa's tight ends have kind of stopped being good because they don't really throw the ball, I think we're going to start having some of the best tight ends in the Big Ten. You had A.J. Barner. You had, why am I blanking? Eric All, who transferred to Iowa, but he was here first. And you had one other Michigan tight end. It was A.J. Barner and another guy that got drafted. But anyway, or no, it was Barner and Loveland. Sorry, right? Loveland's going to be a first-round pick. You've got Marlon Klein, another guy whose name escapes me, that's a true freshman behind him, that are both beasts. So Michigan's going to have good tight ends. Whether they won't be like, George Kittle level, but they'll be good. And Michigan won a national championship with receivers that were subpar. So I'm not worried if the wide receiver position is good. And for all the crap we've given Michigan's defense this year,
Yeah.
they really haven't been that bad. When the offense goes 3 and out almost every drive, right, there's only so much you can do. So I think if we get our scheme figured out and we stop blitzing so much, that will get fixed.
Okay.
But the X factor to this is, I'm sure you know him, Dave Portnoy, Barstool
Oh,
Sports.
yes. He's been chirping on
I
social
think
media.
I think Dave Portnoy and I think other big boosters, alumni, are going to go out and start getting involved directly in the NIL market.
Yeah.
Do I think we're just going to go out and buy a quarterback? No. But I think we're going to get some impact transfers to come in. I don't know who they're going to be. But ultimately, I think now that we sort of have gotten the NIL money going, we can start getting involved in that. You had Ohio State go from a completely mid-team, like pre-off season, to one of the best in the CFB with like the $12 million or whatever it is they spent. And I think Michigan can follow that. So I think by 2026, I don't know if we'll be national championship caliber again, but I think we'll be back at the very least competing for a Big Ten title and playoff spot.
Okay.
Do you think it's unrealistic that we turn it around in 3 years under Sharon Moore, given the NIL situation, given we are still recruiting really strongly? We just pulled in a 5-star offensive tackle from, I want to say, Kansas. Can't remember off the top of my head. We've got a couple good QBs coming in, which is going to fix that problem. And the NIL money, I guarantee you, is going to go to a QB first before any other position. We have some pretty solid defensive players coming out.
Yeah. If, like what you say with the NIL money, with how Michigan's going to hopefully do things differently, or how you hopefully they do things.
I think they will. I think that's
yeah. I don't
assumption.
think Michigan's going to go back into like the second dark ages.
Well,
like it was for a hot.
I don't think
decade.
we're gonna. I don't even think we're there now. Like, we're bad, but we're still going to make a bowl.
But, like, I'm talking about, like, Rich Rodriguez or Brady Hope or like, the first half of...
This is contingent on us getting a better coaching staff,
Harbaugh,
NIL money, and the recruiting.
Yeah.
The recruiting right now is there. Dave Portnoy is supposedly going to get that NIL money, and I don't think he's going to be the only one.
Okay.
So those two things, so one of them is already there. Second one is there in theory. The coaching staff one scares me a little bit more, but... I think when you recruit better, when you transfer better, I think coaching staff matters less when you've already got the players.
Okay.
So I think those characteristics are really realistic, which is why I think we'll be back in 3 years. Flip side is Sharon Moore's terrible. He gets canned after 3 years. Then you start from scratch. But if that NIL money is there, that recruiting is still there, you can build up a base with someone that has more coaching experience, whether that's Kurt Cignati from Indiana, Matt Rule from Nebraska, pick and choose. But the point is, I think Michigan is at a point as a program where if the NIL money starts flowing in this year, next year, whenever, if our AD gets his act together or we get a new AD, I think we will be back in a position to succeed in football.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Well, that being said, if anyone who's just joining us, this is WPX 91.5 FM H2N Marquette. This is the Jack and Dom radio show, just talking about some college football. Kind of going back to what we were saying, I'm going to lie. Michigan is pretty solid this year. Just kidding. I was on TikTok and someone said I'm not gonna lie, blah 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 blah. I'm gonna lie, but I don't like.
It's like here's
but
the thing,
yeah.
Is
but as obviously compared to last year, Michigan's on the down low,
and I think that was that was expected. I just don't think the down low was going to be this big, which is why I think we're going to rebound in the next couple of years, even with the tough schedule.
But for Michigan State, at least compared to last year, we're on the up and up.
Well, we're going to get to Michigan State. I just want to mention one more thing. Michigan's schedule
you want to talk about Michigan.
Well, I said I would get to Michigan State.
You're in the Michigan cult. It's part of
You're in the Michigan State cult. We're all part of our own
cult.
The point is, Michigan's got a tough schedule, but once Quinn Ewers and some of their other star players graduate, I think Texas is going to go back to normal when they inevitably don't win an SEC or national championship. I think they'll still be up there as a powerhouse, but I think
they almost lost to Vanderbilt.
Right, but I think Michigan,
a good
Michigan team in the next 2 years, I think will be equipped to beat Texas. Oklahoma's in a rut. I don't think we're going to have any trouble beating Oklahoma whatsoever. Okay. So the two tough games on the schedule are going to be. I think this Michigan team could beat Penn State. Penn State is, one, objectively not good. Two, we beat them every year, except for one. Okay. So I'm not worried about those two teams. Really, I'm not worried about USC either. I don't think Lincoln Riley's going to last long if they keep playing like this. So really, your two tough games are Oregon and Ohio State, and we won't play Oregon every year. I haven't looked at the schedule, but I think we play Oregon something like potentially every other year. So you've
Yeah.
got those 2 tough games and Texas. But I don't think Texas is going to be nearly as good when Ewers and some of those other guys leave. I think Arch is overrated, but even if he isn't, the talent is not going to be the same. So I think we'll be in a good spot. I think we'll be back to about 9-10 wins by next season, if the ingredients mesh correctly. It's like we're baking. You got to put the oven at the right temperature. You got to put it in the right baking dish. You got to put in all the right ingredients.
You gotta wait for the oven to
Right, the oven's got to heat up.
to
The
get
NIL
to
money's
that
got to heat
temperature.
up. Right, we have all the ingredients sitting on the table, and we need
Okay.
Sharon Moore. We need our athletic director Ward Manuel. We need a new offensive coordinator, and we need Wink Martindale. The 4 of them to mix those ingredients together and bake a cake. I'm not asking you for
Yeah.
the world's best, Michelin star carrot cake like we had last year.
You said Michelin?
Michelin. Fine. Michelin.
It's the same company as the tire company.
Michelin
tire
sounds
company.
cooler.
It's the same
But
company.
Michelin sounds French and fancy. So
I know,
that's why I
but
say it.
the tire company
Yeah, but
is
it-
the same. Is the
I think it is
the-
Michelin, though, because
no,
it's European. But anyway,
no,
that doesn't matter. The
The
point
Michelin
is-
Tire Company is responsible for giving out Michelin stars to restaurants.
Yes, I know. But anyway,
Okay, most people don't know.
regardless, I think they're called Michelin, but I think they say Michelin to
Is that
audiences. Doesn't matter. Point being, I'm not asking for that kind of carrot cake, but I want a cake that's edible. Right now,
Okay.
I've got raw eggs and flour, and that's just not.
And
No.
raw carrots on the side.
Right.
Still haven't been cut up yet.
There's sugar, so I guess I'm tasting something, but it's
If you
not
just-
tasting
if
good.
you just eat sugar, though,
No, I'm saying
which is bad for your teeth. Don't
I'm
do
eating
that.
the batter. The batter, I'm not happy with the batter.
That's
I want
true.
it to bake.
Although I do buy
okay.
cookie dough and just eat the cookie dough.
So, first off,
This is good.
It was nice we beat Michigan State, our worst year in a decade plus. But anyway,
Oh,
I don't want to rub it in too much because I told you I didn't care a lot about that game. Look, I'm happy that we won. But
yeah,
it's
of
true.
course.
It was a semi-meaningless game, in my opinion. Okay. I said I'd talk about Michigan State. I'll stand by it.
Well,
Unless you don't want me to.
I mean, go. Yeah, if you have thoughts, go right ahead.
We can talk about the Lions any week because I think the way the Lions are playing every week
Well-
it's going to be Lions demolish another opponent. Lions win again. But we'll get to that.
Well, with Michigan State, obviously coming from 3 wins from last year, we're not where we should be. Obviously, because it's our first year.
Right.
Putting kind of like with the baking, metaphor, putting stuff together,
I think
and just the way that. I know, my autism kicks in
it's not
where then
that.
I
It's
start
just I know you're
stuttering.
going to start
and-
having some delusion.
and-
But go on, say it.
Well, we still have a possibility for a 6-win season.
That's
full eligibility.
semi-realistic. Which is about what I thought
which-
you'd get.
No,
I
you
said
thought 5. Yeah, 5.
5 to 6, you said.
I said
five.
6 to 7.
Okay, I said 5. Right now you're at 4.
Yeah, so we're
We're on
almost
track
there.
for about 5 or 6.
Which is
so
pretty
I'm not
sweet.
that far off.
I think it's pretty sweet,
Right.
but it's obviously not easy to lose, or it doesn't feel good to lose to a rival. That being said, it was a close game. It wasn't a blowout like you guys thought it was going to be in the beginning of the year. It wasn't 49-0 like it was last year.
Well, that was
Ooh.
a very, very different
Ooh,
set
that
of
was a
circumstances,
very-
and you and
yeah.
I both know that.
Yes, it was. You want to talk about Ohio State almost losing to Nebraska?
We're going to get there because
Well, let's
I
get
said
there.
I said I'd talk about Michigan
All right,
State.
go right
I want
ahead.
to because as a Michigan fan, I want to be objective about Michigan
Nah.
State. If I'm like some of my compatriots, I'm not delusional.
All
Same
right,
for
well,
some
go
of
right
your
ahead.
compatriots.
Go right ahead. I said what I needed
Okay.
to say.
So I think what's going to happen with Michigan State is one of two things. First, I'll give you the optimistic approach like I did with Michigan at first, where I said all the ingredients gel correctly.
Yeah, like what I was saying.
Now, realistically, I don't like how much we overuse Little Brother. I think it's semi-disrespectful
that
when
was
we play it
said
all the time.
by
Yes, I
playing it
know.
after the game.
I don't love when we say that. I can say it because I'm a fan of the team and I do it because I want to mess around with you. But I think as
Yes.
players, I don't love it when we say that moniker. However, on paper, that is sort of true. I think Michigan State is not going to get back, in my opinion, ever. Might happen way down the line, but you are not going to be Mark D'Antonio Michigan State again.
That was so cool.
Where you are, there was a 2 or 3 year stretch
No.
there.
It's Mark Dan Antonio. That's how you guys
Okay. You ran the Big Ten for about 2 or 3 years, and you had about a decade or two where you were like very competitive in the Big Ten, and you just barely came up short against Ohio State, kind of like us the first 6 or so years. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think you're going to win the Big Ten for a minute. Not even because you're bad, just because you've got Oregon, you've got us, you've got Ohio State. USC will eventually figure their crap out. Nebraska will eventually figure their crap out. There's just a lot of good teams now. But I think what will happen is, in the optimistic approach, Aiden Childs, is he a sophomore this year or a junior?
Sophomore.
Okay. I don't think he's going to the draft next year no matter what.
No.
I think we'll play the 2026 card for you as well. Aiden Childs is a senior. In your what? You're looking at me like I'm crazy.
Nope.
Okay.
No, I agree with you.
2026 card.
He should play out his senior year.
2026 card. I think no matter what happens, Jonathan Smith stays here 3 years. I think there's a world where we either A, miss a bowl game this year, or B, miss a bowl game next year, and Sharon just gets canned right there. Michigan State, I think Jonathan Smith stays no matter what, because the expectations are different. So, if you got Jonathan Smith, you've got Aiden Childs. You'll probably have some superstar mythical running back that you just pull out of the transfer portal.
Which, hey,
you
we
seem
did
to do
it
that
once.
every year.
We could do it again.
Well, you already did. You found Nate Carter. So that's twice in a row you've done that. Not a Heisman candidate like Walker, but a great player in his own. Nick
Superstar.
Marsh is going to be, what, a junior at that point?
I think so.
Okay, and in a Michigan State ideal world, you've got Aiden Childs playing like an NFL caliber quarterback, which I think is realistic.
Like a Kirk Cousins, Connor Cook.
Yeah, about that.
Drew Stanton.
He'll be able to run, though, so I think he's going to have even higher upside than those guys. You'll have Marsh, who I think, regardless, even in your doomsday scenario, is going to be all-American caliber, I think, by the time he hits junior year. And I don't know much about the rest of your team, but I think based on the way you're hitting the transfer portal, in an ideal world, I think by 2026, you will be competing for a New Year's Day bowl game. I don't even know if those technically exist anymore because they've been morphed into the playoff.
Yeah.
But whatever the bowl games are, a step below the playoffs.
Yeah.
Is where you'll be. So whether that's like the Tax Slayer Bowl, the Gator Bowl, I don't know what they are now. I'm still learning with this whole new expanded playoff, what all the bowl games are. But you'll be a step, maybe 2 steps, but a step below that. I don't think you're going to win the Big Ten. I don't think you'll be in the Big Ten title game.
Not this year, not
I don't think in 2026 you're going to beat us. You might in 2025 because I think you're accelerating a little bit faster than we are. But I think your upward curve doesn't necessarily go as high.
Okay.
But I think you're accelerating. So you might beat us next year. But I don't think you will in 2026. So we'll say, like I said with Michigan, I think you'll sit around 10 wins. I think Michigan will be one of the bottom seeds in the Big Ten, or not in the Big Ten, in the college football playoff, and I think you'll be just a bit below that in your optimistic scenario. And I think you'll hit the transfer portal quite hard and be one of the top transfer portal teams consistently, and you'll recruit at about an average level, like top 40 maybe.
Yeah.
Michigan State.
But below Michigan, Notre Dame, Ohio State. Right.
You will be like...
Because that's who we have to
quite a bit below them and Penn State, like all those other like, top teams, but you'll be like... in the tier with like Iowa when Iowa actually has a competent offense, current Indiana, Nebraska, like you'll be in that kind of USC when they get their stuff together.
Yep.
Like that'll be your tier. So that's your optimistic in 2026. You maybe beat us in 2025, and you're competing for a previous New Year's Six bowl spot, so you're a little bit below the playoff. So like maybe we'll say in like the 15 to 25 range is where you'll sit.
All right, so what's the worst case scenario?
Your worst case scenario is going to be Childs just doesn't work out.
Okay.
Childs couldn't start ahead of DJ Ugalele at Oregon State, which in a doomsday scenario just tells me that he's not good.
Okay.
His stats are inflated. This isn't the doomsday. His stats are inflated this year because he's played against poor defenses.
Yeah.
Michigan's defense is, I hate to say it, not great. Again, it's the offense's fault, but not great. Boston College's defense, not great. Prairie View A&M, not great. Didn't play well against Ohio State. Didn't play well against Oregon, right? So what you're going to have is you're going to have a situation where you have a QB that can only play good against bad teams, which even bad teams can play good against other bad teams.
Yes.
I think in this doomsday scenario, by year 3, you miss a bowl game outright. So you're about in the same spot that you are in year 1, maybe even a little bit worse. Aiden Childs doesn't pan out. And so you've got Marsh, who I still think will be all Big Ten, maybe not all American, with no one to throw to him. You're going to struggle to hit the transfer portal because you don't have the NIL resources to do it. And you're going to be unable to recruit at a high level, which I think is going to happen regardless. Mm-hmm. And so I think in a doomsday scenario in year 3, you barely make a bowl game. So kind of like this year, a very similar record, very similar outlook. And I think in that doomsday scenario, you get a new coach and you start from square one after that season. I think you'll fall realistically. I think Michigan's going to end up being in my good scenario. I think we'll hit 10 wins by 2026. I don't even think that's that much of a reach. And I think Michigan State will be somewhere around 8.
Well, I think the difference between doomsday and best case scenario, I think it just comes down to one thing. I don't think it's transfer portal. I don't think it's recruiting. I think it's player development. Just like how Mark D'Antonio ran his program.
Right.
If the Spartans can do really good with player development and maybe even like chemistry, which is kind of the same.
Well, chemistry is related.
Chemistry, player development. If you can get 2-3 star players, like remember, like Le'Veon Bell. He was
way back.
He's a 2-star. He was a 2-star high school recruit. Became one of the best Big Ten players in the country, and like was a tank. And was in the NFL for like 10 years. If you can get 2-3 star recruits,
well, you've got one
to then develop them into all-star players, college players, that's going to make or break Michigan State.
Dare I say it's going to make or break Michigan too? We have the money to go get star players. However,
you guys have more leverage.
Yes, but I think in order for us to succeed, we've got to continue what Jim had and build from the ground up with 3 and 4 stars. Mm-hmm. We will never out-recruit Georgia and Bama. Never. Will never.
But you will out-recruit Michigan State.
Well, sure, we'll out-recruit Michigan State, but I don't think we're going to ever out-recruit Ohio State or Notre Dame. We don't have those kind of resources, and even if we do, I don't think we're going to utilize them in that way.
Okay.
I think for both teams, it's going to come down to, I think player development is the second most important thing. I think transfer portal and NIL is number 3. I think number 1 is going to be coaching staff for both.
Okay.
Does Jonathan Smith get somebody in there that can develop Aiden Childs, develop Marsh, and does Sharon Moore fire our offensive coordinator and get a QB coach and an offensive coordinator in there that can get us to get out of the 18th century. I don't care that there was no football in the 18th century and back into the 21st.
No, there was.
Not
in
really.
The late 18th century.
Not really. Not in the way we know
Princeton, Rutgers.
Okay, anyway. We'll talk about the Lions next week because there might... I want to skip to the power rankings only because...
Yes. Other than mentioning, obviously, Lions demolished Titans 47-9.
Yeah.
Amazing game.
Great game.
We're warning all Packers fans out there, this will happen to you.
I sure hope
Okay.
So. Okay.
All right, NFL power rankings.
Quick, I want to do our power rankings. So
yes.
we agree. Lions are number 1. And we agree
yes.
the Chiefs are 2, and I think that's obvious because you've got the hottest team in the NFL on top.
With a better
they are the hottest.
point differential.
Better point differential. They've got the undefeated team in second.
Yes.
We also agree on third, the Bills, which are, in my opinion, the hottest AFC team right now. I don't care that the Chiefs keep winning. They are strategically the one that's playing the best. The Bills are. Number 4.
But you have them before as Packers.
I do.
Why?
I think until the Packers, hopefully, lose to the Lions. They're number 4. Their only losses are to, I'm trying to remember.
Because the only reason why I don't have the Packers as top 5, because I have the Commanders and then Texans, is because compared to the Commanders and Texans, they don't have a home loss. Packers have a home loss.
Yes.
And at a worse.
Packers had a tougher schedule by a lot. And I'm trying to remember who they lost to. They lost to the Vikings, I know. And that's a reasonable loss because the Vikings will be number 6.
First game.
So you've lost to 2 very good teams. Now,
are the Eagles good?
Yes, they are tied for first, I believe. Or
in their division?
Yes.
Okay.
So, good team. And I have the Commanders at 5th because they're utterly shocking the world. Jaden Daniels is what everybody said Caleb Williams would be. Caleb, you're a bust. Chicago, you still don't have a quarterback. Take the L, losers. You're never going to have one.
That was a play at the end of that game.
No, it's hilarious to me. Only the Bears. The Bears have turned into what the Lions were.
I still remember
and it would be
Aaron Rodgers throwing that Hail Mary.
And going, I own the Bears, because he does. We all do at this point.
Yes.
But the Commanders are 5th because I think they've got extremely high upside, and I would not be surprised in the slightest if they won a playoff game. I can tell you for certainty, I don't want to be paired up against them. Assuming we are the top seed in the NFC, which I think is a realistic, semi-realistic thing to say,
Because, we are number one in that
Right.
NFC.
We would play against, we get the first round bye.
Yep.
So we probably realistically play against the 5 seed, because normally the 5 seed is almost always better than the 4 seed. Maybe the 6 seed. So you'd probably end up with either, if it's the 4 seed, it's probably going to end up being whoever wins the NFC South. So that would be, with the Bucks losing all their weapons, that's going to be the Falcons, I think.
Yeah.
So that would be a very favorable matchup. I'd love that. First wild card is either going to be the Eagles, the Commanders, or
Texans?
no, in the NFC.
Oh,
Texans or
NFC.
AFC. Eagles,
okay.
Commanders, Niners, or like the Rams, and I'd like to avoid all of those teams. So I hope we don't have to play against the first wild card. So I hope the Falcons beat them. Falcons would be a favorable matchup. And then like the second or third wild card, I think at home, the Vikings would be a favorable matchup. So I think I'd like to play the Vikings or the Falcons in the first round.
Okay.
NFC's deep this year. But I think our rankings are somewhat similar. We'll revisit those at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And I just want to lastly briefly run through.
Before we
Red
end the
Wings
show.
had a couple okay performances. They dropped one to the Oilers, my second favorite team in OT. My favorite player on the Oilers scored 2. And on Saturday, they dropped 5-3 to the Sabres. So they've had an okay run. They're 4-4-1, I believe, right now. The Pistons got a piston.
Yeah.
They are 0-3 to start the season. Wow, who could have guessed? With losses to the Celtics, Cavaliers, and Pacers. All close games, but like I said, close games don't matter if you can't close them out. And lastly, if there's any soccer nerds on the air, Rodri wins the Ballon d'Or, which I am.
Which is the world's best player award.
Yeah, like the best soccer player, effectively. Yeah. I'm excited about that because I thought he deserved it over Vinicius. So yeah, quick rundown of global sports, and that's all from me.
All right, awesome. Well, this is WPX 91.5 FM, HD1 Marquette. This was the Jack and Don Radio Show. Please stay safe out there. Happy Halloween. We'll see you guys next week.